The first time I visited a shared home in Harare, leaving my shoes outside revealed the reality. Limited floor space would soon accommodate 7 women's sleeping mats. In Zimbabwe, space has become more precious than the country's abundant diamonds or platinum. What does dignity look like when privacy becomes a luxury? This question resonates throughout Zimbabwe's housing crisis, where economic collapse has transformed living arrangements. Today, we're exploring this phenomenon of forced shared living across Zimbabwe, especially among women. From the ancient stone ruins that gave the country its name to the misty edges of Victoria Falls, we'll meet women who have opened their homes to strangers. Their stories challenge Western notions of privacy while revealing unexpected resilience that emerges when necessity dismantles traditional boundaries. Imagine standing at a cash register, holding a $100 trillion bill in your hand, a staggering sum in theory, yet being told it's not enough to purchase a single loaf of bread. This wasn't a dystopian movie scene, but everyday reality for Zimbabweans during the peak of their economic crisis. The hyperinflation that gripped Zimbabwe in November 2008 reached an almost incomprehensible 89.7 sextillion%. Behind these mind-boggling figures lies a profound human story that forever altered the fabric of Zimbabwean society, particularly for women. How does a society function when its currency becomes meaningless overnight? Zimbabwe's journey from prosperity to crisis began in the early 2000s with controversial land reforms that triggered a devastating chain reaction. Within just a few years, a nation once celebrated as Africa's breadbasket became dependent on food imports. Agricultural production plummeted as experienced farmers were displaced and new farmers struggled without adequate support or resources. Walk with me through the streets of Harare, where the skyline is punctuated by the skeletal frames of abandoned construction projects, half-built homes frozen in time. "This was going to be my retirement home," whispers an elderly woman, pointing to concrete pillars overtaken by weeds. "Now it stands as a monument to what might have been." These architectural ghosts tell the story of families who began building during better times, only to have their dreams suspended indefinitely when their savings evaporated overnight. The housing crisis created a phenomenon known locally as hotbedding, a practice where multiple individuals share the same bed in shifts. As one person rises for work, another, having just finished a night shift, slides between the same sheets for their turn at rest. This rotation continues throughout the day and night, with a single mattress serving 3 or more people who may never actually see each other. Women have been disproportionately affected by these arrangements. Traditional family structures buckled under economic pressure. Single mothers, widows, and women who migrated to cities for work found themselves unable to afford even basic private accommodations, forcing them to share the most intimate spaces with strangers. What happens to personal dignity when privacy becomes an unaffordable luxury? In densely populated neighborhoods like Mbar and Highfield, rental costs have soared relative to incomes. A single room might cost more than half of a woman's monthly income, creating an impossible choice between adequate housing and other necessities like food and education for her children. The math simply doesn't work, pushing women toward these shared arrangements not by choice, but by necessity. The economic perfect storm that created this housing crisis combined land reform with political instability that scared away investors, international sanctions that limited access to global financial systems, and a series of currency changes. Zimbabwe has used at least 7 different currency systems since 2000, each change eroding public confidence and savings. This crisis redefined the concept of home itself. When asked what home means to them, many Zimbabwean women now describe it not as a physical space, but as a shifting network of relationships. Traditional concepts of privacy have been replaced by elaborate systems of mutual respect and unwritten rules governing shared spaces. The housing shortages have become so severe that in urban areas like Harare, Bulawayo, and Mutare, many women report spending upwards of 70% of their income on housing costs, compared to the international recommendation of 30%. This disparity forces impossible choices between adequate shelter and other critical needs. While economists debate percentages, Nyasha quietly removes her few possessions from a shared wardrobe at precisely 5:30 a.m. each morning. In a one-room apartment in Harare that would fit inside most American walk-in closets, 7 women navigate a living arrangement so precisely calibrated that a single disruption could unravel their entire system. For Nyasha, a 32-year-old office professional earning roughly $200 monthly, this isn't a temporary situation, but her permanent reality, a microcosm of urban survival in Zimbabwe's capital. The morning routine begins before sunrise. Nyasha's alarm vibrates silently under her pillow at 5:25 a.m., a necessity in a room where others sleep within arm's reach. She has a 15-minute bathroom window, a critical time frame in their carefully orchestrated schedule. Sometimes I feel like my entire day hinges on those 15 minutes, Nyasha confides. I've perfected the art of silent preparation, moving through our space like a ghost. We operate like clockwork, she explains, applying makeup in the dim light from her phone. When I first moved here 2 years ago, conflicts were constant. Now we have a rotating schedule that accounts for everyone's work patterns, even who needs extra time for hair washing days. Their living space resembles an intricate puzzle box where every inch serves multiple purposes. 7 women, 7 lives, compressed into 4 walls that would challenge a single occupant. The ceiling functions as a suspended marketplace with fabric storage bags hanging from hooks. Bed frames, elevated on concrete blocks, create miniature warehouses underneath where plastic containers hold everything from books to kitchenware, a 3-dimensional solution to 2-dimensional limitations. This is my wardrobe. Nyasha points to a sliver of space barely larger than a microwave. Monday's outfit goes here, Tuesday's here. In our world, even small confusions become major disruptions. The financial reality makes this arrangement necessary. The apartment costs $80 monthly. Split 7 ways, each woman contributes about $12 for rent, plus shared utilities and communal staples. Without each other, Nyasha reflects, we'd all be struggling to survive in the city. Our cramped existence is actually our pathway to independence. Their ecosystem includes sophisticated social structures. Unwritten rules govern everything from noise to visitors. When conflicts arise, and they inevitably do, they employ Sunday evening council meetings where grievances are addressed directly. We created a constitution, says Nyasha. In close quarters, systems aren't luxuries, they're survival tools. Safety concerns shadow their daily existence. They've developed verification systems, specific knock patterns, and group messaging, ensuring each woman returns home safely. Personal belongings carry small padlocks, not out of distrust but as practical acknowledgement that boundaries must be physically defined where space cannot provide them. Perhaps most revealing is how economic necessity has forged genuine bonds. When Nyasha contracted malaria last year, her roommates adjusted schedules, covered her expenses, and monitored her recovery through the night. We were strangers when we started, Nyasha says, gazing around the room that represents both her constraints and her community. Now I know Tatenda's mother's birthday and which foods upset Memory's stomach. This arrangement taught me something about Zimbabwe itself. We survive by depending on each other. The tighter the space, the stronger the connections. Just over 2 hours from Nyasha's crowded apartment in Harare, the mist of Victoria Falls creates a perpetual rainbow, a stunning natural spectacle that draws thousands of tourists annually. But in the shadow of this wonder, local women like Grace have reimagined ancient communal traditions into modern survival strategies. Grace's modest 3-room home sits within earshot of the fall's constant roar. What tourists experience as nature's majesty, she experiences as the soundtrack to her daily economic balancing act. My grandmother lived with her sisters and their children in one homestead, Grace explains as she arranges colorful beaded crafts on her front porch. This is different. We are not all family, but we have become something like it. Her home functions as both residence and informal business hub. 4 women live here permanently, each contributing to rent and utilities. They share not just space, but responsibilities. Additionally, Grace hosts temporary lodgers, usually women seeking work in the tourist-heavy region, while travelers capture perfect waterfall photos against the backdrop of the smoke that thunders. Paying premium prices for the experience, the women in Grace's collective operate in a parallel economy. A 20-minute walk from luxury safari lodges with infinity pools, they've created interconnected micro-businesses catering to tourism. When my husband left for South Africa 5 years ago, the money stopped coming, says Tarisai, stirring a pot of sadza, the cornmeal staple of Zimbabwean cuisine. I had two choices: move back to my parents' rural home or find another way to survive here. Grace offered me a room, but more importantly, she offered me a community. The golden mist of the falls contrasts with the rust of economic hardship in these women's lives. Mercy specializes in intricate beadwork, transforming colorful glass beads into jewelry that sells for a fraction of hotel gift shop prices. Tarisai prepares packed lunches for tour guides. Another resident offers laundry services to backpackers. This adaptation represents a fascinating cultural evolution. For generations, extended families in Zimbabwe lived together in compounds, sharing resources and childcare. Today's economic pressures have transformed this model, expanding family to include non-relatives bound by financial necessity rather than blood. The social implications extend beyond housing logistics. Children grow up with multiple maternal figures, creating networks of care that transcend conventional family boundaries. Marriage patterns shift as women achieve greater independence through these collectives. Morning routines in Grace's home demonstrate the intricate choreography of shared living. Before sunrise, women take turns in the single bathroom, preparing for their respective hustles. The boundary between private and communal space blurs in these arrangements, yet there's unmistakable strength in this interdependence. When the tourist season slows during the rainy months, we all struggle, Grace acknowledges. But we struggle together, which means no one goes without eating. These collectives have developed sophisticated systems, informal savings clubs, emergency funds, and investment pools. Their economic resilience often surpasses what individual households could achieve alone. For tourists capturing the perfect waterfall photo, these realities remain largely invisible. The falls continue to thunder, indifferent to human arrangements, while underneath its mist, women like Grace quietly rewrite the rules of community and survival. What we've witnessed across Zimbabwe reveals something profound. Genuine human connection flourishes even in economic hardship. These women haven't just shared living spaces out of necessity. They've cultivated communities that nourish both body and spirit, creating bonds of solidarity that help them weather life's storms together. As sociologists who've studied these communities have observed, these social structures may endure far beyond the economic challenges that birthed them. The networks these women have created aren't merely survival mechanisms. They represent a reimagining of community in our modern world. As we depart Zimbabwe, we're left to reflect. In our pursuit of privacy and independence, what forms of connection have we sacrificed? These women have rediscovered the profound strength found in interdependence, transforming limitation into liberation through the simple yet revolutionary act of sharing not just resources but lives.